to build their own compliance. I'll talk more about that a little bit later. And developers have to have great experiences. One of the biggest problems in the XRP ledger space is that there just are not a lot of people who are able to develop in that space. It has to be easy. It has to be simple. The documentation has to be good. The support has to be there. The tools have to be there. But if we can build those four things, we can have the foundation for an institutional-grade blockchain with the XRP ledger leading in these institutional DeFi applications where regulated products can enable true DeFi ecosystems. We don't want to launch a regulated product on a public blockchain as an island that doesn't connect. There's no reason to do that. But it's obvious why you wouldn't launch USDC on a private blockchain, right? The whole point of a stablecoin, the whole point of tokenized securities, I want to use them as collateral for loans. I want to rehypothecate them so that other people can, maybe I want to tranche them so I can have different investments with different risk profiles. I want to put together a DeFi product that's backed by an institutional stablecoin, that's backed by tokenized securities, that's backed by real commercial grade lending and real estate lending. That's what the XRP ledger could do. So let's talk about where we've gotten and where we're going to build that. I'm going to go into more detail on each of these, but I just want to give a broad description of them on one slide so that you can sort of get the vision for where we're going and where we are. So if you get too down in the weeds, you kind of lose the big picture. So big picture, we have the automated market maker. It launched in March of this year. There was a little bit of drama around the launch, as many of you know. I see some smiling faces. I'm glad we're past that, but it's working very nicely now. The lending protocol has been released. We'll talk about that in more detail, but that's another example of that sort of, that'll be very regulated lending. It'll be commercial real estate lending, but it will be tokenized on the back end, so it will enable a DeFi ecosystem. Decentralized identity, if every project has to launch its own identity infrastructure, it's just going to be terrible for everyone. Oracles are critical for things like over-collateralized stablecoins, tokenized collateral. You need to have pricing information. Multi-purpose tokens will be proposed in the third quarter. It'll fill a gap in the way assets are represented on the XRP ledger. I'll talk more about that. And the EVM sidechain. So I'm going to go into more detail of all of these, but I think this is a roadmap for institutional DeFi. So let's start with the automated market maker, something that is extremely near and dear to my heart. As I've said many times, I've been experimenting with trading and volatility harvesting and different types of strategies for probably 30 years now. There is a tremendous amount of volatility in digital assets, and just like logically there shouldn't be, because volatility is exploitable. There are trading strategies that profit from volatility. It's really simple, basically. You sell high and you buy low. It literally is that simple, and that's what the automated market maker does. It executes a trading strategy. But the most interesting thing I think about the XRP ledger's automated market maker is how it integrates with the other functions on the XRP ledger into what we've been calling the super DEX. The XRP ledger has order books. Some people call them central limit order books or CLOBs. And what that means is people place offers to buy or sell one asset for another. It's a trade, and they sit on order books to be taken by other people. Many blockchains can't implement order books because most trades are not taken. This is just the way markets work. Most people who place an offer to trade, nobody takes that offer. The price changes before anyone takes it, and they rescind the offer. If it costs you $4 or even $2 to place an offer, then order books will be very, very limited to only really major assets. In fact, in some cases, there just aren't any assets that big, and order books just don't work. And so on most EVM-based chains, you just don't have order books. You only have AMMs. The XRP ledger has order books. These are very capital efficient for popular assets, but they're not very good for unpopular assets because somebody has to actively make a market. These facilitate manual market making. So I can make a market between XRP and a USD stablecoin by placing offers into the order books. But someone has to do that. And there's not going to be anyone who's going to do that for hundreds of assets. Automated market makers take that long tail of assets. So those on-chain order books operate 24/7. And the automated market maker executes a trading strategy that harvests volatility. So if you have an automated market maker between, say, XRP and a USD stablecoin, it will get revenue not just from market making, but also from volatility harvesting. The AMM that we designed for the XRP ledger has a couple of unique features. One of them that I think is important is just that it benefits from the XRP ledger's core architecture. Transactions are very cheap and very fast. If transactions are expensive, that's going to limit people's ability to interact with the AMM, and you're going to sort of lose a large number of low-value transactions. A small number of high-value transactions is good, but a large number of low-value transactions is just as good. And if you lose that, you're missing 50% of the picture. There is no MEV, there are no block producers, there's nobody who controls the order of transactions on the XRP ledger, and that helps to prevent money from essentially being taken from the liquidity providers. The continuous auction mechanism, this is an exclusive that we developed, that takes some of the revenue that would have been given to arbitrageurs and gives them to the LP token holders. So the basic gist of this is, let's say you're an arbitrager and you calculate that you could make $100 a day. The XRP Ledger's AMM implementation sells execution privileges that allow you to do the majority of the arbitraging. So if you're going to make $100 a day from that, you have to bid for the privilege of arbitraging. And you might bid, let's say, $90 a day to make that $100 a day, which means instead of the liquidity providers losing $100 a day, they only lose $10 a day, which reduces impermanent loss and increases yield. And there's voting over the control of the pool trading fees. The lending protocol is another one of those institutional DeFi applications. It's enterprise consumer lending and real estate lending. It doesn't change the underwriting portion. And of course, if someone doesn't pay back a loan, you have to sue them. You don't sue them on chain, right? Or you have to negotiate with them. Maybe they're in bankruptcy or whatever. That is all done the exact same traditional way. What's unique is the back end, where the capital comes from and where the payments go. So the way the proposed lending protocol works is there's a single tokenized pool of the asset that's going to be lent. It could be XRP, it could be a USD stablecoin. The manager who owns each lending pool will decide who gets a loan, how much the loan is, what the term is, what the interest rate is, and they will actually approve the loan. And then the borrower will be able to extract the funds from the pool. When payments are made, the payments will be determined by the pool. So on one side, you have this heavily regulated CeFi, centralized commercial lending, and on the other side, you have a tokenized back end. The underwriting, the risk management, litigation if necessary, contract execution, all of those things take place off-chain. A unique feature here is on-chain first loss capital protection, which helps to protect the lenders in case there's a small number of the loans in the portfolio that don't get paid back or go bad. Interoperability, extremely, extremely important. As I said, I lived through the internet revolution. Everybody in this room probably has a smartphone, has home internet access. There is no one single thing on the internet that is so compelling that it's the reason that you have that. It's because everything is on the internet. If there's some information you need and it isn't on the internet, why the hell not? What the, if information you need is not on the internet, something is really wrong, right? Everything is on the internet. Now, there are a small number of things that are tremendously valuable. A lot of people love X, used to be Twitter. A lot of people love Amazon. A lot of people love, Meta. But there's a long tail, right? There may be 30 people in the world who are gay, lesbian, and bisexual fans of Space 1999, but to them it is the most important thing in the world. And the internet can provide not just what everybody wants, but what these very small groups of people want. And that long tail is tremendously valuable. And that's what only interoperability can give us. If our users have to, imagine if you wanted to use the internet and you say, oh, that web server is on Wi-Fi and using Linux. I'm used to web servers that are using Microsoft and fiber optics. That would be a terrible experience, right? And in the blockchain space right now, you have different wallets for different blockchains. You have assets that are on different, right? It's not a good user experience. If we want to be compelling, we have to be seamless. One of the first things that we need is asset portability. That's not all of interoperability, but that's a big piece, and that's the piece we need now. And one possibility is the XRP Ledger as a trading hub across blockchains with the DEX, the payment engine, pathfinding, the various different XRP Ledger features that enable the movement of assets. In fact, one of the very first applications on the XRP Ledger in the very, very early days was as a way to move Bitcoin faster and cheaper. Issued assets enable, remote assets that are based on different chains along with bridges. So I think that's an extremely important step towards interoperability, but it's just one piece. The industry has a long way to go. But if we want mass adoption, users are going to have great experiences. We have to solve interoperability problems. The XRP Ledger could be a token bridge. for asset portability, but that's not the whole solution. So I want to talk a little bit about how I think about the EVM sidechain and EVM programmability. That's another one of those things to target that long tail. So if you need AMMs, the XRP ledger has it. If you need NFTs, the XRP ledger has it. You know, if you want an issued asset, you want an order book, the XRP ledger has it. But what if you want something that's a little different? You have some weird quirk in NFTs that you need that the XRP ledger can't support. And maybe only 10 people in the world care about it, but for those 10 people, it's extremely important. The XRP ledger can't do that. It's a fixed function ledger. It adopts functions that are of broad, you know, the 80% of the, you know, the 20% that solves 80% of the problem. EVM can target the long tail, and we don't want to tell people who have those problems in the long tail, we're sorry, we just don't have any way to help you. Just go somewhere else. We don't want to kick them out of our ecosystem. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking, which is like the XRP ledger is why we're here. It's what's important. And that's true. But I just want to point out, in the early days, we celebrated every exchange listing. That is not an XRP ledger thing, right? People who hold tokens on exchanges, they're not using the ledger, but they're using XRP. And I'm hoping that we can see the XRPL EVM sidechain. Oh, announcement. It has a name. I wanted to call it Niobium. I lost. It is called the XRPL EVM sidechain. I know that's what everybody was calling it anyway, but that is actually its name. That is a bona fide announcement. I'm not lying. It is actually going to be called the XRPL EVM sidechain. I want you to think of that as a true part of the XRP ecosystem. XRP will be its native token, and it will be able to address that long tail of use cases. And if we have asset portability, I think we should think, I hope we can think of it as part of the XRP ecosystem, and that the XRP is not just the XRP ledger. Maybe that's too much to ask. So Axelar is going to provide the bridge for the native token. Anybody who wants to can provide other bridges for other tokens, but you do have to have one bridge for the native token, the gas token. That's going to be provided by Axelar. It's going to use a proof of authority consensus. It'll have a block explorer, and you'll be able to use, you know, traditional EVM wallets. It will be a traditional EVM chain. One of the advantages of being able to launch projects on the EVM sidechain is the development cycle is much faster. So it took, what, 2 years to bring AMMs onto the XRP ledger? Let's say somebody said, hey, I want to do securities derivatives with leverage trading and, you know, some other weird thing on it, over collateralization, blah, blah, blah. You could maybe launch that on the XRP ledger in a year. You could launch that on an EVM sidechain in probably 2 months, and it's much easier to find developers. So we have to be realistic. For that long tail of projects, if we don't have a place inside our ecosystem for those projects to go, they're going to go elsewhere. And so we should, we should be inclusive. Decentralized identity is extremely important if we're going to have a large number of smaller projects. So when you think about enterprise DeFi, you think of maybe like the 10 biggest companies. So I was telling you about it before, like we had the enterprises like that launch stable coins or tokenized securities, and we have we have all the users on the DeFi, but there is a middle, right? There's something else that's not in that picture, which is medium-sized businesses that are not going to launch a stable coin. They're not going to tokenize securities, but they're still going to do very interesting things in regulated spaces. And they're going to have some way to onboard users that can, meet KYC, AML, and sanction screening. The traditional way you would do that is you would send your driver's license or passport to every single company that you wanted to onboard with. Well, that is terrible for everybody. Why is that terrible for you? Do you trust these projects? If they're small to medium, you would have to think, how good is their security? How much money are they spending on protecting my identity information? And it's terrible for them because it's a pure cost center. They don't want to have your driver's license. They don't want to have your passport. They don't want to do KYC AML. They're doing it. Why does the law require them to do KYC AML? Because they wouldn't do it if the law didn't make them do it, right? They're not happy about it. It's a cost center for them. If they get hacked and lose your identity information, you're not happy. Nobody's happy, right? It's a terrible system. So we need a standard. This is a W3 standard. Ripple didn't invent it. It didn't come from the XRP ledger community. It's a W3 standard for the underlying data, and there's a standard for storing it on the XRP ledger. So what this allows you to do is you go to a company like Fractal ID. They're in the identity business. That's all they do. They want to store your data because that's their business. This is not something they had to do to launch the business they wanted to launch. This is the business they wanted to launch. They'll go to you and they'll say, use us as your identity provider, and then you'll have an identity that all of these like medium-sized projects can use, with the XRP ledger as sort of the clearinghouse for the reference information. So this is an extremely important enabler for that vision of enterprise DeFi. It's not just the very biggest companies on one side and all the DeFi users, but there's small and medium businesses that have to have a place too, and this is a key enabling technology for them. Oracles are another enabling technology. They're not really that sexy all by themselves. They don't do anything amazing all by themselves, but they're a critical enabling technology for things like over-collateralized loans. So if you have collateralized, or let's say you have an over-collateralized stablecoin, or let's say you use a token as collateral for something else, the system has to know the value of the things that it's holding. You need an oracle for that. Band Protocol and DIA are going to be providing oracles, but anybody who wants to can provide an oracle. The XRP ledger doesn't discriminate against who's providing the data. There will be an actual oracle object on the ledger that will hold the pricing information and will be available for use by other ledger features. So multi-purpose tokens are interesting. The XRP ledger currently has really three types of tokens. There's XRP, which is its own thing. It has its own rules, divisible into drops. It's the native token. You use it to pay fees and so on. There's NFTs, which are designed for things that are one of a kind. And then there's issued assets, or IOUs, that are really designed for assets that are fully fungible and infinitely divisible, things that work like money. But there's assets that don't fit either of those models, or any of those. Concert tickets are a good example. They're semi-fungible. They're not really NFTs. But you don't want to think of them as infinitely divisible. If 100 people show up at a concert and each one of them has 99.998 of a ticket, it's super awkward, right? Multi-purpose tokens have finite configurable divisibility, which has two advantages. Number one, you can support things like concert tickets that shouldn't be divided. But also, you can have a specified number of decimals, which makes the math much more easily. You can have a fixed token supply. I know you can have a fixed token supply with IOU assets, but you kind of have to bash a square peg into a round hole to make it work. They work nicely. Another important thing about these is the asset itself is a thing. So the way the XRP ledger is designed, you might think of an asset as a thing. So for example, Bitstamp issues USD on the XRP ledger. We think of Bitstamp USD as a thing, but the ledger doesn't think of Bitstamp USD as a thing. From the ledger's point of view, there's a bunch of people who Bitstamp owes money to. And the asset itself is not a thing. It's very much like your balance on the Bitcoin blockchain. If you have an account on the Bitcoin blockchain and you have a balance, there's no such thing as accounts or balances on the Bitcoin blockchain. Usually we think of it. An account is all the UTXOs that can be claimed by the same private key. A balance is the total of all those, right? Assets are not, issued assets are not a thing on the XRP ledger. They're just like balances or accounts on Bitcoin. But with MPT, with these assets, the asset itself is a thing, and so it can have properties. So as you see on your screen here, this is an example of an asset that has properties. It has a supply. It has decimals. It has a symbol. And all of this is represented on the ledger. There is currently no asset, there's no way to do that currently on the XRP ledger. So MPTs will enable this sort of more flexible type of asset. The token will be a thing, so it will have a token ID. Tokens can be made non-transferable if they're things that represent, information that is not value. Well, that's about it. This QR code